$865 billion vanished in a single afternoon. You are witnessing the unraveling of the most vital alliance on the planet, and Washington is in full-blown panic mode. Donald Trump slammed an ultimatum onto the Canadian desk, fully expecting compliance. He thought he had all the leverage. He believed he could strong-arm America's quiet northern neighbor into total submission. But Mark Carney didn't just refuse. He tore the deal apart and walked away, leaving the U.S. Energy supply exposed and the American administration scrambling. Trump's bluff has backfired on a historic scale. The Forge Initiative, the so-called $865 billion integrated energy framework, is dead. And the economic fallout is already heading toward American homes, highways, and wallets. This February, the Trump administration demanded absolute control over Canada's vast reserves, critical minerals, crude oil, raw energy, tying them exclusively to the U.S. supply chain. No outside buyers, no independent deals, total compliance. It was a classic display of maximum pressure. Threaten devastation, demand surrender, and wait for the other side to break. Failure to comply, a full 100% tariff on every item crossing the northern border. Give us your resources, or we'll destroy your economy, the message was clear. But Carney saw through the intimidation. He didn't just say no, he shattered the negotiations entirely. Canadian diplomats walked out. The massive framework collapsed. And then Carney went global. Calls to Europe, calls to Asia. Canadian energy remained open, but not to bullies. That's a historic pivot. Canada, the largest foreign energy supplier to the United States, was now refusing to be America's obedient warehouse. Oil, natural gas, electricity, everything Trump counted on, it was suddenly off limits, or at least under new management. To understand the magnitude, look at the receipts. First, the Supreme Court. Days earlier, they struck down Trump's use of emergency powers to slap tariffs on Canada and Mexico. His threat had just been legally neutered. The White House scrambled, invoking a 1974 law to impose a global 15% tariff anyway. But the damage was done. Carney saw weakness where Trump thought he held power. The courts weren't backing the administration, giving Canada the perfect opening to reject the energy ultimatum. Washington wavered. Ottawa stood firm. Second, the Canadian pivot. Canada launched the Buy Canadian policy, a multi-billion-dollar plan to reduce U.S. reliance, keeping steel, lumber, and local supply chains under domestic control. Billion-dollar contracts vanished from U.S. firms' reach. Carney was fortifying the nation's economic independence while Trump raged online. Third, the China EV deal. Trump demanded the world cut ties with China, yet Carney quietly secured a deal. Canada eased tariffs on Chinese EVs, while China reciprocated for Canadian agriculture. U.S. oversight? None. Canada was charting a new course, bypassing Washington entirely. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Carney made one sentence that sent shivers across financial markets. Middle powers must act together, because if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Calm, measured, but devastating in implication. America was no longer the reliable partner. Markets reacted instantly. Energy futures spiked. U.S. auto manufacturers sounded alarms. Canadian currency stabilized, while consumer confidence in the U.S. faltered. Investors realized that any disruption in Canadian energy or minerals would grind the American industrial machine to a halt. Gas at the pump, heat in your home, car prices every corner of daily life was about to feel the shockwave. Trump's problem? He's trapped by his own methods. Escalate, threaten, demand, assume submission. Treat allies like real estate deals. Threaten them legally and socially. But nations are not properties. You cannot foreclose on a sovereign country, especially one holding resources vital to your survival. Trump mocked Canada for months, joked about turning it into the 51st state, floated Greenland as personal property, and treated global policy like Twitter banter. He assumed dominance, but his impulsiveness came at a cost. Threats stalled investments. Supply chains hesitated. Cross-border logistics froze. Detroit and Windsor, the lifeline of 25% of U.S.-Canada trade, became potential choke points. Prices on raw materials rose. Auto plants panicked. American consumers began to feel the strain. Leverage backfired. Every threat pushed Canada further toward independence. Contrast Carney. He doesn't throw punches in the dark. He plays chess in the light. Former central banker of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England, Carney knows global markets at a level few can touch. Power is not who yells the loudest, it's who controls the systems. When Trump threatened energy, Carney didn't storm social media or hold screaming press conferences. He leveraged alliances, economics, and diplomacy. Critical minerals, fresh water, agricultural output, energy reserves, they were Canada's chips to play. Carney reframed the conflict around sovereignty, stability versus chaos. Investors reacted predictably. Markets trust Carney, they scoff at Trump. Walking away from the $865 billion deal sent a clear signal. Canada can endure a trade war better than the U.S., can survive the loss of energy. Carney is methodically detaching Canada from erratic U.S. politics, building coalitions with Europe and Asia. Washington has no effective counter. American dependence on Canadian oil, natural gas, and minerals is suddenly a vulnerability, not a guarantee. Cars, electronics, home heating, groceries, everything touches Canadian supply chains. If Canada redirects trade, costs surge, shortages appear, and inflation creeps. Citizens, not politicians, pay the price. Tariffs are taxes on Americans. Every item, from bread to beer, reflecting geopolitical tension. For decades, the U.S. led the free world. Now, the polite northern neighbor stands independently. Carney didn't shout, he raised the cost of ignoring Canada. Trump's supremacy illusion evaporates. And now, the next chapter looms. U.S. Mexico-Canada review of the USMCA, or CUSMA to Canada, is no routine check-in. The Forge Initiative collapse sets the stage for three possible outcomes. Scenario A, freeze out. Carney stalls, signs minor strategic deals elsewhere, and lets Trump and the U.S. economy stew. Scenario B, escalation. Trump doubles down, Carney responds by shutting off pipelines, cutting power, mutual economic destruction. Scenario C, sudden cave. Trump retreats, claiming victory, while secretly begging Canada to restore flows. Calm negotiation, not part of this story. The rules have changed. Trump's hand is empty. Carney flipped the board, exposing weakness at the highest level. Energy, markets, and global perception all pivoted in that single strategic maneuver. This is the reality unfolding. Trump's bluff, the $865 billion deal, the exposure of the U.S. energy supply, the Wall Street panic. It is not fiction. It is happening. Carney's chess-like maneuvering shows the power of preparation, credibility, and global awareness. The American administration scrambled, while markets watched, waiting for clarity. Every barrel of oil, every ton of critical minerals, every shipment of goods now carries the weight of this geopolitical chess game. And you, sitting at home, feel it every time you check the pump, read your grocery receipt, or follow stock market news. Because when a power like Canada steps up, the dominoes start falling fast, irreversible, and real. As we move into the fallout, the picture becomes even clearer. Donald Trump's aggressive tactics have left the United States exposed like never before. The Forge Initiative is dead. Energy pipelines, critical minerals, and industrial supply chains, all once assumed under U.S. control, are now effectively Canadian assets. And Mark Carney? He didn't just walk away. He rewrote the rules. He showed the world that a small, methodical, strategically minded country can withstand the threats of a global superpower and even turn them to its advantage. While Trump rages and tweets, Carney quietly consolidates power, builds alliances, and ensures that Canada's economy is not dependent on a volatile neighbor. Stability has become leverage, and chaos has become a liability. Let's talk consequences. Your car, your heating, your electronics, your groceries, all will feel the shockwave. Canada supplies over half of the crude oil imported into the U.S., massive amounts of natural gas to the Midwest and Northeast, and critical minerals for electric vehicles, batteries, and technology. If even a fraction of that supply is redirected, Americans will pay at the pump, at the checkout, and in monthly bills. Investors are already reacting. Futures markets spiked the moment the deal collapsed. U.S. automakers are scrambling. Consumer confidence is shaken. This is not abstract geopolitics. It is entering your home, your wallet, and your day-to-day life. Every time you fill up your tank or swipe your card, the consequences of Carney's move and Trump's miscalculation are tangible. Politically, Trump is trapped. He cannot negotiate like he used to. Escalation only exposes weakness, while retreat will be spun as defeat by opponents. The Supreme Court decision struck the first blow, hollowing out his legal leverage. Carney's refusal is the second, this time with economic teeth. America's allies are watching. Europe, Asia, and even other middle powers see that the U.S. cannot unilaterally dictate energy policy or resource access. Trust in American leadership erodes every time Canada takes decisive action independently. Carney isn't just defending Canada. He's signaling a new geopolitical order. Nations can and must act in their own strategic interest, even in the face of traditional superpower. The lesson is stark. Trump's approach threats, ultimatums, and performative aggression works only when others fear repercussions. But when a neighbor like Canada sees through the bluff and plays their own hand, those tactics collapse. Carney leverages credibility, global reputation, and real assets. And suddenly the American administration looks impotent. The U.S. economy, which was counting on predictable Canadian energy and minerals, now faces uncertainty that will ripple through Wall Street, the manufacturing sector, and everyday life. Supply chains freeze. Costs rise. Inflation bites. This is a slow-motion economic shock that begins at the border and moves south. Mark Carney's strategy is subtle, almost invisible, but devastatingly effective. He is orchestrating a long game that protects Canadian sovereignty, secures global partnerships, and reshapes the balance of power in North America. He understands that power is exercised through credibility, preparation, and strategy, not tweets, threats, or bluster. While Trump scrambles to regain leverage, Carney is already redirecting trade, building coalitions, and insulating Canada from American volatility. Every decision, every phone call, every alliance Carney makes sends a message: Canada will not be bullied. And for Trump, every reaction, every tantrum, every hasty decree only highlights his loss of control. For Americans, the message is personal. Gas prices could surge. Electronics, cars, and household goods might get more expensive. Industries reliant on Canadian raw materials will face bottlenecks. The economic effects will hit every household, from city apartments to suburban streets. The human cost is real, and it is already underway. But beyond the numbers, the geopolitical lesson is even larger. U.S. dominance can no longer be assumed. Allies, suppliers, and trading partners are increasingly willing to act independently. The rules have changed. Stability, foresight, and strategic patience now outweigh raw aggression. As we close this chapter, understand that this is not a temporary skirmish. The collapse of the Forge Initiative represents a seismic shift in North American relations. Trump's bluff has been called, and Carney has rewritten the playbook. This is a long-term transformation of energy, economics, and influence, one that will define not just this administration, but the next decade of U.S.-Canada relations. America is suddenly on the defensive, watching a once predictable ally assert independence and reshape the landscape. Your daily life will feel it, your economy will feel it, and the balance of power in North America will never be the same. The takeaway is simple. Leverage without credibility is nothing. Threats without follow-through are hollow. And when a skilled strategist like Mark Carney moves in silence, the world notices. Donald Trump thought he held the cards, but the table has been flipped. The United States is alone in a landscape it once dominated. And Canada, calm and deliberate, is now setting the pace. History is being made, and it is happening right outside your front door.